Actinver is a regulated Mexican financial group and bank.
Some news with Intercam, CI Banco, and another investment banking firm.
Things have changed in Mexican banking since then, and compliance has gone through the roof. Different process to open an account in Mexico than is in other countries.
The Trump tariff talks, which is affecting the Mexican economy.
There's always risk around geopolitical things, as you know, from many, many countries. And Mexico is not the exception. It's my understanding that there's big monies coming into Mexico as well, not just private investors, So there's big institutional money making investments in Mexico, like manufacturing, like real estate, like hotels.
Even the government of Mexico is allocating a ton of capital into AI infrastructure. So it's this whole fintech banking world fascinates me. Government is doing in and around crypto, and it does. Mexican peso stablecoin, and Mexico is the world's largest silver producer. And I did a bit of a dive into the Mexican stock market. Anyone who's considering investing in Mexico, welcome to Financial Liberties. And in today's interview with Bernardo Gonzalez, the regional director of Actinver, we discuss the Mexican economy, the war with the cartels, as well as tariffs, and why we're both bullish on the Mexican economy overall. The interview is 30 minutes long, but it's packed full of great information, and he shares a lot of insights into the Mexican economy. It's something you don't want to miss. But I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce the Financial Liberties in Mexico YouTube channel. It's something we launched over the weekend, and here's a quick intro about it before we get into the actual interview. Mexico is one of the most exciting financial frontiers today, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Whether you're a Mexican national trying to protect your wealth, an expat navigating the financial system, or an international investor looking at Mexico for growth opportunities, the challenges are all the same. Complex regulations, inflation eating away at savings, confusing banking rules, and trying to separate the real opportunities from the empty promises. This is Financial Liberties in Mexico, a channel dedicated 100% to making sense of money, finance, and investing here in Mexico. Welcome to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. This is where I live, and this is where Financial Liberties is launched. If you live here, you'll get clear strategies to save, invest, and grow your wealth. If you're an expat, you'll learn how to move money safely, avoid costly mistakes, and take advantages of opportunities. And if you're an investment firm, private equity group, fund manager, or a venture capitalist, you'll get insights into the sectors, regions, and policies shaping Mexico's future economy. On my main channel for Financial Liberties, we've already covered topics of Mexico. We've had interviews with some of the top banking executives from Actinver. We also had interviews on health insurance, videos on personal reasons why I decided to move to Mexico and choose to seek financial liberties here, and many other videos covering the Mexican market. Now, we're going to migrate those videos soon over to this channel, so stay tuned over this coming week as we plan to have at least 1 or 2 videos posted every day for the next week, and then we'll also have other videos coming in on a regular basis. Those videos made it clear. Mexico deserves its own platform. That's why I created this channel. So all the content is focused right here, where your pesos are, dollars, and investments meet opportunities. Here's what you can expect on Financial Liberties in Mexico. Practical guides for navigating banking, savings, and investing in Mexico. Deep dives into industries attracting global capital from real estate and energy to mining and technology. Fintech is a space I really love here, and the banking sector is getting changed as we speak. We also are going to cover strategies to fight inflation and to protect your wealth. Whether you earn pesos, dollars, or both, we're going to help you figure out a way to best navigate the Mexican financial system and to invest your capital down here. We also have conversations with experts in this space. The whole podcast series for Mexico Business and Investor Spotlight is based on this. We have interviews with some of the best entrepreneurs in Mexico, economists, fund managers, who understand really what's happening in the Mexican financial system. So whether you're a Mexican citizen, an expat living here, an international fund manager, or investor looking south of the border, this is the channel for building wealth and seizing opportunities in Mexico. And if you're on Facebook, join our Financial Liberties Investor and Entrepreneurs in Mexico Facebook group. We have 4,100 members there, and we're an active community having great discussions and regular posts. So join us on Facebook. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me here at Financial Liberties in Mexico, where your money meets Mexico's future. Are you new to banking in Mexico? Are you curious about how to invest in the Mexican economy outside of real estate? Well, in this interview with Bernardo Gonzalez from Actinver, we're going to unpack it all for you. We're going to be discussing the recent changes in the banking system. We're going to be discussing the Mexican economy extensively, how foreign direct investment is still growing, and we're going to look at different ways you can invest with Actinver. So watch the video right to the end. I have a special offer for you. I hope you enjoy it, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Liberties channel on YouTube. We're starting this new podcast series, and it's called Mexico Business and Investor Spotlight. And today I have Bernardo Gonzalez from Actinver. He's the regional director of Actinver, and he's a returning guest. I had him on here last year, and I'm happy to have him on again today. We're going to be talking about a few different subjects versus last time. So if you haven't seen the last video, I'll link it in the comment section below or in the description below, and then you can watch that to get an overview of expat banking in Mexico and Actinver. But today we're going to get into more topics on the Mexican economy, recent events that have happened, as well as some investment options that are emerging in the Mexican landscape. And Bernardo is going to provide us his thoughts. So Bernardo, please take a few minutes, introduce yourself, tell us what you do at Actinver, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Yes, thank you. I'm Bernardo Gonzalez, Berna for friends. You can call me Berna. And me and my team help investors and expats to start a banking relationship and investing in Mexico as well.
Great. And you work with Actinver. Can you tell us a little bit about who Actinver is and why expats choose Actinver?
Yeah, of course. Actinver is a regulated Mexican financial group and bank. We offer banking, brokerage, mutual funds, asset management, discretionary and mandates, and private wealth as well. We're also going into lending. So we help expats in Mexico having their first banking relationship.
Great. And from my research, you're one of the bigger investment banks that are out there focusing on investment banking more than traditional banking like a savings account. So, and our show focuses on investment stuff. So that's great that we've had this relationship with Actinver where I refer clients to them. So let's get right into some of these topics. Recently, we've seen some news with Intercam, CI Banco, and another investment banking firm run into issues with the US Treasury, and bank accounts had been seized. Can you talk to us or explain maybe what you had seen with this incident of the banks getting frozen here in Mexico? Do you see that happening with other banks, and how has that really affected Actinver?
When regulators act, the intent is to strengthen the system, okay? Is to get the system stronger. So when you choose a bank in Mexico, you need to choose a regulated institution to know who holds the custody of your assets, understand KYC before wiring funds, and also diversify the rails, cash, custody, and execution. Yeah, Fintech it brings convenience and governance, but governance must scale with it. So the healthiest setup then is a strong digital front end with a bank grade compliance and treasury behind the scenes. And yes, what has happened is that they have been named, or they have been in trouble with the US Treasury Department by financing some operations. But as comes to now, it's that these banks are not going to be able to wire money back and forth to the States. So that's kind of where it stands right now. And things have changed in Mexican banking since then, and compliance has gone through the roof. We're now in the need of a lot more communication, a lot more service, and a lot more compliance from our side as well.
Yeah, I've been messaging my rep at Actinver, Patricia, and she's been mentioning how compliance with opening new accounts, they're doing a lot more due diligence on the clients, the source of funds. So that's something people who are going to be opening an account in Mexico is going to have to deal with. I mean, it's just the new regulatory environment. Now,
compliance in Mexico has always been a big issue. I mean, there's a different process to open an account in Mexico than there is in other countries, and this has been designed through the years for the protection of the user. At the end, there's some bureaucratic, still some bureaucratic processes or something that might seem extra careful from Mexican banks, but that's been designed so the user is protected all the time.
Absolutely. And the banks have coverage from the Mexican government, similar to the FDIC in the US. So
Yes.
now what I have been hearing, I got a message from someone I do some consulting with, and his mother was trying to open up a bank account with Scotiabank in Mexico. She was an active or an Intercam client, and they rejected her just because she was an Intercam client and they would not accept any funds. So, I mean, there seems to be some still issues around it. So, it's something we're paying attention to, watching as it evolves, but maybe it gets resolved next month. But yeah, so
Yes, I think for big banks is a little bit more difficult to take control, But so for smaller banks, could be easier to attend every file with attention.
right. Now, how has Actinver managed to differentiate itself from Intercam and CI Banco to maintain investor trust and given the light of events that's happened recently?
Well, always with transparency, Vin, discipline, good service, and communication. Everything is put up up front. We know what people is doing. We know our counterparts. We know where the money is going to be sent from and sent for. We ask about operations. Every chunk or every amount of capital that comes in, we need to have the back of it. Where it does come from? How did you make the money? So it's mostly compliance issues that we have been addressing, and we have addressed in the past as well.
Great. Yeah, I remember. Uh, Well, the good thing I like about Actinver is that every rep speaks English, so it's very easy to communicate. Whereas I opened a bank account with BBVA, they gave me the runaround saying I had to buy health insurance, and it was a ridiculous amount for the first year. But luckily, I went to another branch the next day, found an English speaking rep, and opened the account, no problems. But Actinver is very good in that way that all the reps are English speaking. They're very attentive to clients. And that's why, I always suggest people who want banking or investment banking relations in Mexico to consider Actinver. That being said, I mentioned that Intercam is being acquired by essentially a fintech company from what I've read so far, and I've done a little bit of research into Capital Bank, US based, but now I guess they're taking over Intercam clients. Um, I've seen a lot of capital raises and new banking options available to set up the ease of opening banks and acquiring small credit loans. This whole fintech banking world fascinates me because we're starting to see them evolve in the emerging markets. Brazil is a great place where capital is being deployed in these fintech, and Mexico is the second largest economy in Latin America, so it's getting a lot of attention. How do you think fintech is going to affect banking relations in Mexico versus the traditional banks or a bank like Actinver?
Well, I think that fintechs will serve a lot more like the underserved side of the business. And it is in Latin America, and you might know it, that lending or borrowing money is very difficult, right? So
Yeah.
what they're putting up, and what I've seen and research is that they're putting up some systems assisted with AI and stuff that you can get accredited to borrow some money or to have a loan on your name or on your companies. And I think it's a good scenario, Still, I think in banking business in Latin America, personal advice or personal service will always be important. Like we still have 50 plus customers that really don't want to deal with the app, really don't want to deal with this. So a good combination between both worlds, I think, will be the best. And I'm a tech fan, so I mean, I like tech, I love it. I work in tech for a few years, but I still think in the banking industry, you want to talk to a person. You don't want to be seen just as a number or have just 35 questions where to choose from to solve your problem.
Absolutely. And I love tech too, because I've been following it since I got involved in the tech space in 95. And yeah, I see all these AI setups. I mean, even the government of Mexico is allocating a ton of capital into AI infrastructure. So it's interesting to see that, and I'm sure that will lend well into the banking and fintech sector as well. Um, so that being said, we've talked about risk management, compliance, due diligence on accounts. So we've got a really good understanding of how Actinver differentiates itself and and the process of opening a new accounts. So I'd really like to get into the next major topic, which is the Mexican economy in general. Now, I've been hearing a lot, reading articles on how the Mexican economy is starting to slow down. There's talks of recession. We've seen the Trump tariff talks, which is affecting the Mexican economy. So there's a lot of moving parts that are happening here in Mexico all at once. And 2, 3 years ago when I first moved here, there was a strong peso. The economy was just booming, moving on all cylinders, with manufacturing and nearshoring and all of this. But do you feel that environment is changing given what's happened in recent events?
Well, rumors and news will always be there in the market and will always affect your money, how you manage it. But Mexico has structural tailwinds like nearshoring, tourism, remittances, and also remains cyclical. So we don't bet the portfolio on one forecast, but we use scenarios. And if growth softens, then carry and liquidity matters. If growth holds, then quality domestic export-linked equities can lead. So that way, what we do is we keep currency discipline, meaning that for an expat managing their money in Mexico, they still want to have their acquisition power measured in dollars, but they also want to match up what they're spending in pesos. So we kind of make a mixture of that. And right now, also most or more than what is Mexico doing, I think Mexico is being moved by many expectations. Markets moved by expectation, and what's happening to the peso, what's happening to the country has a lot to do with what the expectations are from capital outside from Mexico. And this is what we're living right now. Of course, nearshoring can go away. There can be some political changes. There can be a fight between our presidents or an argument, but that will always be there. So our job is to navigate through all that and to deliver a nice return against it. So there's always risk around geopolitical things, as you know, from many, many countries, and Mexico is not the exception.
Absolutely. Now, there's one other risk that we're hearing a lot more of, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, if it's something you can even talk about. But there's a lot of talk out of the US administration about the cartels and coming in, possibly even coming into Mexico to deal with it because the relations they've had maybe with the Mexican government or not. But do you think that will also impact the Mexican economy if this, call it, war on the cartels starts to escalate? Because you're hearing also, and it's not just Mexico, because it seems like Venezuela and the president there, Maduro, has been under fire by the US government. So it's not like the US government is exclusively focusing on the Mexican cartel base. I think it's more of a broader reach that they're doing. But obviously, there's a lot of concerns, maybe even in the expat community, how it will affect them here in Mexico. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on it, if that's something you can even talk about.
Well, yes. I mean, that has happened before in the 90s. I'm originally from Sinaloa, where all this took place or take place also in a big scene. And I think if that were to happen, I think that will be good news for us as well. There might be some fighting. The peso might lose some ground against the US dollar because of risk. But I think whatever help Mexico can get on that end, I think is going to be a good one.
I think so. I mean, there's always I'm starting the business spotlight series as well, and there's always concerns by people who want to start businesses down here, whether the cartel gets involved and quote unquote shakedowns and all that. So I don't see too much of it here in Puerto Vallarta, but I have heard of other regions where things like that do happen. So I mean, to create a stable economy, you need fair and practical rules and regulations and understanding of how to operate. And I think that'll only help overall in the long run for the Mexican economy.
Yes, I think Mexico in the last year has given security, Vin. It has worked on security. There are some places that are dangerous, of course, like I think everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But Mexico has been working on certainty for companies. It's my understanding that there's big monies coming into Mexico as well, not just private investors, you know. So there's big institutional money making investments in Mexico, like manufacturing, like real estate, like hotels, and this money doesn't come with uncertainty. So there might be also a good piece of information that that Mexico is safe enough to make that kind of investments.
Yeah, so I guess now nearshoring's been a good trend for Mexico for quite a while now with China and other countries. I think Germany, even US manufacturing has moved into Mexico. So that's always, I think that trend will continue as, once we get out of this next little period of time with the Trump tariffs and how that all plays out. But I think they'll resolve it. Their time frame they're talking about is October, and once we get beyond that, and if there's a clear and framework to move ahead, then I think it'll be, a green light again to get back in, and you'll probably see a lot more foreign direct investing in Mexico. Do you see that trend with foreign direct investing? China was a big investor. Do you see other countries now looking at Mexico? I'm bullish on India as an economy just because it's a massive country, but are you starting to see other regions of the world start to invest into the Mexican economy?
Yeah, I think being that how do you call it? Institutional money or old money, it's already getting bored to stay in the same place, you know. So it is that kind of money is now looking for different options to diversify. Mexico has been a good place. Brazil can also be a good place. Chile has been a good place also in the past. So there are certain Latin American economies where money is flowing. I mean, maybe Australia are where millionaires are flowing. Not, I don't know about the money, but people is flowing over there to spend, you know, their lives. But I still think there are a few places in the world that money is going to be allocated in the near future. I also am very positive about India. Haven't been there. Don't know much about it. But what I read and what I heard, I like what's going on up there as well.
Yeah, well, India overtook China as the most populous country in the world, and I think they have, it's almost 1.4 billion people, and a lot of them are English speaking, and they've got the best fundamentals from my own research in terms of the emerging middle class, because between that age group of, let's say, a teenager going into their college years, or they're already in the workforce for maybe 10 years, so that let's call it the 20s to mid 30s. There's no other country around the world that has that number of people in that age group, a majority of which is English speaking. And I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I almost think it's like 400 million people, which is almost, it's the size of the US American population for that matter. And they're all emerging, it's an emerging market, and they all have an appetite to move up the socioeconomic scale from the lower ends towards this middle class, and demand for commodities, all of this, even in Latin America and Mexico has the great fundamentals too for the people in that age range. It's just Mexico doesn't have nearly the population that India has. So
Yes.
I would love to see some more sort of, and India actually has to be one of the oldest republics in the world. So I would even love to see Mexico um, align themselves more with these Asian countries, in particular India, because it's not a communist country like China, and you're starting to see a lot of service, and even the IT sector in India is massive. I've seen IT companies move and set up shop here in Mexico, and they're moving Indian nationals in to help out with the IT infrastructure that they've already used to building out for the US. So I think that's a great opportunity. But um, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but if
Well, you know, I think it's a really similar station. Where was Mexico in the early 2000s? Like I used to work for manufacturing automotive industry in Guadalajara, and it was all about labor back then, right? So when I asked my peers in Germany, Singapore, wherever else, what was the natural evolution of a country like Mexico selling their labor or their work, you know, like that, it was selling their intellect or having Mexicans put in the work of intelligence more than just the hands, you know. So right now, I think Mexico is not just exporting goods, but also is selling services and selling intelligence to the world, and kind of getting there with keeping pace with some developed countries. But this is an evolution. The middle class grew at some point, but the younger generation reached the point where they have to open up and be globalized about what they do for a living and how they work and how they produce money. And that's, I think, where Mexico State is right now. So it's kind of a more open economy where people can compete worldwide with their services and with their intellect more than just labor, you know? So, and I think that could be what's also going to be happening in India and many countries that have young population reaching the age where they need to start producing.
Yeah, absolutely. I still believe we're still globally interconnected, and I think that trend won't really change. Now, does nearshoring happen more in individual countries like the US is talking about bringing manufacturing back there? I think I see them having a challenge with that because of the cost of labor there, but I think their workaround on that is going to be introducing more automated processes in manufacturing with robotics and AI and I don't know what the job market's going to look like in the future, but I suspect that trend with integrating robots and AI into manufacturing is just going to continue. So
Yeah,
it's
it's gonna change. It's gonna change a lot, Ben. You know, they might just want to call up what they sent out before. I mean, that's how it looks. But at the end, what I think is happening is just like a equilibrium. You know, it's like getting equilibrated, not just sending everything out, but keeping what they can produce over there. And I think they will be able to match up also quality, but also with a lot much more technology, and that will also develop or be part of the next industrial revolution in technology. I mean, that's kind of everything together, you know.
Yeah, I'm a big techie, as I was mentioning, and I keep saying we're entering this new era of the Jetsons world is my analogy. So if you remember the cartoon The Jetsons, you had this futuristic world with flying cars, and some of the companies I look at and evaluate are kind of related into that, where we're starting to see these, not just the autonomous driving vehicles, but flying taxis and all of this. They're going to try to introduce all of this. I mean, China's really on the forefront of all this tech too. So it's going to be an interesting time. And I mean, obviously, I'm heavily interested in the fintech space, but more so the blockchain and crypto and how that's all evolving. And I think that's a big trend. So I remember from the tech days in the 90s when I got involved to the peak of it, um, and it was a great boom, but the bust came after. I think we're in a place in time where we're starting to see multiple areas of technology all converging at one time. So it's going to be quite the interesting next 5 to 10 years, for investments, but just to see what's going to happen globally and all the changes that are going to be coming down. Like, I mean, if Tesla is talking about coming out with a humanoid robot and they call it Optimus, that price point is, let's call it 15, $20,000. You'll be able to have your own personal robot to do all your own things for 20 grand. That's going to be a bit of a game changer.
Yes, together with AI. No, I think also decentralization will play a high role in this, and brokers at the end, or many brokers in different sectors will stop existing or will stop existing. So producers and consumers will be a lot more connected directly, and maybe wealth is going to be distributed in a better way. Of course, all the way is going to hurt. It's not going to be easy because there's a lot of people into this or into labor or into that. So I think big change is coming for the society and for economics. But I'm glad to be here to witness it.
Yeah, well, I think with the tech that's going to get evolved and built out in the US and some of these Western countries, Mexico's still in a huge growth stage. So I see infrastructure expanding in Mexico, so there's still going to be a massive needs for commodities. And even with these AI data centers and all of this, there's going to be a massive need for energy. And the best energy source that's the cleanest right now that they can immediately tap into is natural gas. I've been talking about how undervalued oil and gas sector is. I mean, Pemex, the biggest oil company in Mexico is running into some issues with their bonds recently, but it seems like that might have been resolved. But nat gas is a big thing. Then uranium. I did an interview with an expert in the uranium space, and 5 to 10 years out, we're going to start to see these modularized uranium plants that can be localized in different regions, and they're highly efficient. It's the cleanest source of energy. But until then, I think nat gas has a big future ahead of it right now, immediately. Now, one thing I'm into precious metals. That's my big thing that I've been following for a long time. Mexico is the world's largest silver producer. And so diving, and I'm getting back into the metals providing coverage. And I did a bit of a dive into the Mexican stock market. There seems to be three major mining companies that are in Mexico that are publicly traded. I'm going to be covering them in a different video, so we don't really need to touch on who they are right now. But um, yeah, with commodities, Mexico is not, as a re resource-rich country. Do you see that evolving and how that's going to play out with the growth of the Mexican economy?
Yeah, I see that evolving, but also I see many foreign companies coming to buy land and to also take the resources, right? I mean, we have seen some mining companies having reserves in Mexico. We have seen some also Mexican companies having reserves in Mexico. But what I'm not sure is when is the silver price going to get a fair price or steady? I mean, all the fundamentals are there on why it should be at some point or some price. And I have some silver myself that I bought back in the early 2000s. But I still don't see where that's going to match, right? I mean, with my manufacturing background and industrial engineering background, it's something that I like. But I think Mexico is still going to be very rich in natural resources, but I don't know if they're going to be just extracted as it is, or they're just going to be lots or putting into a lot and being sold in the market, or how is that going to be developed in the future?
Yeah, well, the US obviously is talking now about dropping interest rates, so that may weaken the US dollar, strengthen the peso, because Mexico went through their interest rate drop cycle recently. I mean, I remember Actinver when we first talked about them a few years back. You could get 10, 11% with the government bonds, and I think they're down to maybe 7 or 8%. But if the US does drop rates, I can see an environment where the peso strengthens a little. So, maybe it's a good time to start converting US dollars into pesos if you want to start investing down here. But I almost say would wish that the Mexican government would start talking more about silver here and backing the peso with the silver. Because A, you've got tons of silver production. Silver at one point was money. I think that would strengthen the peso and the demand here would just go phenomenal.
Yes, it would. Yeah, but still, Mexico has a lot of things that are not being done right now, and we hope it gets better. I think our actual government is like a continuation of the last one, and although there's some things being done right, I don't think it is addressing some more sophisticated issues.
Do you know if, and I haven't really looked into it, I suspect they don't, but do you know if the Central Bank of Mexico owns any physical gold or silver for the nation?
I don't know for certainty. We can look it up.
Yeah, I think I'd do a bit of a dive into it. I'm hoping to have an expert in the silver space on my podcast very soon, and he's very focused on the Mexican market too, so he might have some understanding on that. Well, great. I think we've touched on a lot of the topics I wanted to. So maybe the last bit of this segment, since we only have about 7, 8 minutes left, is um, anyone who's considering investing in Mexico. Actinver has a lot of different options. Do you want to maybe quickly touch on some of those options that investors can look at with what Actinver offers?
Yes, of course. You can access from the most basic investment options up to most sophisticated. Normally, we also provide a transactional platform with your investment account, so you can make payments all throughout Mexico. You also receive a debit card with your service. But you can start right now on a daily basis on an investment fund, Mexican government fund. You're getting from 7 to 8%, which is really higher rate than it is all throughout the world. I mean, and you can start investing in our digital platforms. We also have from 5 pesos or 100 pesos, or also have an advisor from 100,000 pesos and above. But it comes from mutual funds up to stocks, up to wealth management portfolios. We can also design a personalized portfolio with a benchmark that you want to beat, and we work on that to beat that benchmark. So we go from the basics to the most sophisticated side on the investments. We have also been helping some people starting the credit score in Mexico with a back-to-back loan. It's very easy because our guarantee is liquid or is the investment, so you can start a credit score in Mexico by having your first loan, as long as you have a residency permit in Mexico.
Great. You know, I found a post online that I was sharing on my X Twitter account where the third richest man in Mexico is fully invested. He was fully invested in precious metals. Now he's fully invested in Bitcoin and crypto. So there's a couple of exchanges that I've looked at and set up here in Mexico for trading crypto, but also exchanging crypto funds into pesos and then transferring that into the Mexican bank account. Um, but I did look into what the Mexican government is doing in and around crypto, and it doesn't seem like they have much of a policy yet. Here we see the crypto market taking off. There is a lot of capital being put together, and I'm hearing numbers of hundreds of millions of dollars that are buying these cryptos, and new ETFs are coming outside of just Bitcoin and Ethereum. One of the biggest ones I've been talking about as XRP, which is now third largest, and I know some of the representatives of XRP have been talking to some of the major banks in Mexico about it, and whether they use XRP or they're setting up digital ledgers and all this technology. What do you see happening in the landscape in terms of crypto here? And is this something that even Actinver may consider in the future if the regulatory environment allows?
Well, at this moment, there's no consideration about it as the regulatory environment is very low or is at the beginning. But if it's regularized in Mexico, then for sure many Mexican investment firms will go into it. But to this point, the only way we can get to it is through the ETFs or through the companies that do crypto in the space or in the market. Mexico normally doesn't go that fast as many other economies when it comes to regulation or accepting new assets or in this case, cryptos. But I don't see when that's going to be a regular currency in Mexico yet, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I like cryptos. I like what's going on and what is around it, but I don't see when is that going to start happening in Mexico.
Well, I think what will happen more than anything else is stable coins. So the US is opening up the stablecoin market with the introduction of the Genius Act. I suspect at some point every country is going to start looking at introducing stablecoins, and Mexico will also look at it as a mechanism for transferring funds in and around the blockchain technology within Mexico. So it will happen at some point, but we'll get there.
Well, as the biggest U.S. business partner, I mean, I will assume that Mexico will follow the U.S. on some times and regulations. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, whether someone chooses to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of this other stuff, the main transfer mechanisms of funds globally or even within the nation itself is going to be a stable coin. So you'll have your Mexican peso stable coin and that will coincide and it'll still work within the traditional banking system. That's not going away anytime soon. But I can see an environment where people who are adopting this new technology, they'll look at it. I mean, they'll get forced into it. This is why I'm putting webinars and meetups about this because you're really not going to have a choice in a few years, I don't think. Or so.
How much percentage of the population has cryptocurrencies? Do you know, Vin?
I don't know the exact percentage. I think it's growing here in Mexico. I found a data and statistics on the growth of stable coins, the adoption of Bitcoin users in that. What I'll do is I'll pull it up and I'll include it as a chart in this video so people can see that because I pulled it up a few days ago actually. So I think it is going to be a growing market. Now, there's a lot of other topics I'd love to touch on, but I'm going to start wrapping this up. We only got a couple more minutes. I'd love to circle back with you soon. And this was a podcast focusing on the investment and the economy of Mexico. Maybe we can circle back and talk about business banking, access to lending products, venture capital investing. That's another topic I'd love to talk to you about. And the next one would be really focusing on the business side of Mexico banking. So,
Perfecto.
you know, that's I think we've covered a lot of great topics. If there's new questions I'm obviously going to have, and maybe we can circle back whenever it's convenient for you. And
Of course,
yeah,
Vin. There's always many questions around banking in Mexico from foreigners. You know, it's normally you will get into a branch, take a paper, wait for your turn, about, I don't know, 40 minutes, and then when you get to the teller, nobody speaks English. That's kind of like the regular basis that you face in Mexico. Okay, so the invitation is to raise your hand, ask about it. We have the team and we have the service to help you out, and it is, well, for me and our process is very easy to start banking. Yeah.
perfect. Well, thank you, Bernardo. I'm going to put links to Actinver in the account. I'll do an exit video clip on this, but thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, Vin. Thank you very much.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed this Financial Liberties Mexico Business and Investor Spotlight with Bernardo Gonzalez from Actinver. He provided a lot of great information. We had a great discussion. I look forward to having him on the channel once again in the future. If you haven't seen the first video I did with him last year, I'll have it in the link below. Now, I did mention a special offer. So if you stayed to the end of the video, I'm offering a free 15-minute consultation with you if you'd like to discuss investment, business, or relocation services here into Mexico. And we'll have that. Or if you're interested in gold and silver, we can talk about that as well. So all you need to do is write a comment below, send us an email, and we'll set up a time for a chat. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and look for future videos on this series. And we'll talk soon. Take care.